Grandpa and Uncle Pooh. This is my cousin Jasmine. She is a respected author in the book space, and as well as a highly decorated educator of children and young adults.
Hello. Okay. What do you
Well, thank
teach?
you for the introduction. I'm a public school teacher. I teach here in Washington, D.C. I've been teaching for 14 years.
What grades?
I have taught kindergarten through sixth grade. Most recently, I taught kindergarten, but I've preschool, pre-K, kindergarten, first, second, all the way to sixth. So
Okay.
got a lot of experience.
Yeah. What do you slate August
Say it
or
again.
September? What are you teaching this upcoming year?
This upcoming school year, so this is my first time actually leaving the classroom. I will be a special education interventionist, so I'll be supporting the entire school, K through 5 students with reading interventions. So that's what
Awesome.
I'll be doing.
Hey, that's like what is that? The next step being superintendent. Look, this class.
not quite, not superintendent yet, but I'll have
Okay.
more of an impact. And just aside from just my class of students, I'll be working with the entire school. So that's fun.
Okay. Well, let me put the banner up. We'll get to that in a second. As is commonplace, I don't know if you ever seen the show, cousin, but what we got a beer in. What did y'all got, Uncle Pooh and Grandpa?
Tell them what you're drinking.
Yeah, tell him what I'm doing.
Oh, I thought he was gonna do it. We're drinking Mike's Harder tea and lemonade. So Harder Mike's Arnold Palmer. What you think? You ready for the show?
I rated this six and a half.
You rated everything.
Is this a scale of 10?
Oh yeah, it's a scale of 10. It used to be a scale of 5, but
Somehow we got to 10. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I think by episode 3, Grandpa just started saying numbers over 5, so I was just like, okay.
Yeah, I agree. This is about a 6, though. It's nice. It's solid. We drank a few of them, so it must be all right.
I dig it.
A good midday afternoon drink.
Yeah.
Yes.
For us, well, I'm not retired, so I don't know what I'm doing.
I don't know if you have any libations, Jasmine, but you're welcome to share what you got today, that you want to rank.
Well, the only thing I just have some water. Keep hydrated, so I just have water for now.
We love water. I remember me and Grandpa be having on rare occasion water episodes because of health reasons.
Oh yeah.
We probably need to get some water, actually.
Oh,
hey.
Hey, y'all. Hey. Huh?
She's on her throne. She had to make sure she made her royal appearance.
Look, but I gotta apologize in advance. I'm hungry, so y'all gonna get this eating during the show. I feel like we drink on the show, so why can't we eat too? I'm like, it's either that or I ain't gonna be on here.
See, look at this. Auntie, this if you may have not met, but this is my cousin Jasmine. She's our guest today.
Hey, Jasmine.
I'll give you the intro I gave everybody else. She's an accomplished author and a highly decorated educator of young minds.
Oh, I love it. And she cute as pie.
Thank you.
Cute as pie. I sound like somebody, Auntie. She's so cute, baby.
Auntie, you too cold in there? You feel like Grandpa right now? You need to put a hoodie on.
Look, I will tell you this, nephew. So, what was it? Yesterday morning at the hotel, they had the fire alarm went off. Right when we were all getting ready. So I'm like, your uncle was in the shower. I was like, cool, I'm gonna run down and check on Pops, make sure everything's good. Get down there. Your Uncle Hank was already there. I walked in there. The room was on hell. Your Uncle Hank, your granddaddy, and the devil. They was all sitting there together chilling. And I was like, I'm glad y'all good. I'll meet y'all in the lobby. Like, I can't do it. But Pops loves it. So
yeah. I'm curious, what was the cause of the fire? Was it
these drunk young men pulled the alarm?
Oh, okay. I was just like, Grandpa didn't. He was like, it was too cold.
Look,
had to warm it up a little bit.
Oh,
And the crazy thing is, when we first got there, the worst thing that could ever happen to your granddaddy happened.
what?
The thermostat went out on there, and it kept getting colder and colder in the room. We were
Oh,
like,
no.
"This is not gonna work." Like, no, it was 71 degrees in there, and it kept dropping. We were like, "No, y'all gotta come fix this right now."
Oh no, that's
Yeah, it was like
let me Auntie, you fooded in. Are you gonna beer in?
Oh yeah, I got some beer. Sorry, I'm real ratchet today. I got to see. I didn't get a chance to go back and get anything else, so it's the one I had last time, the silver lining, hazy IPA.
Okay. Grandpa
So,
gave you heard he gave the Mike's Harder lemonade a 6.5.
oh he liked that from Mike's. He's like, let me get some of that. Ooh, I like it.
Watch, I'm gonna have to bring him a case.
Look,
not bad at all.
yeah, he was tearing it up.
This is what I got is from while you pouring yours was from the past weekend. We had some visitors and one of them left a Steel Reserve Tiki edition strawberry daiquiri. So I gotta brave it.
Whoever brought you that does not like you. You should block them.
I gotta for science. We have to rate every libation that is alcoholic.
No, that is the one thing I will not touch.
Ever. Steel Reserve?
Hell no.
Yeah, they didn't got a Steel Reserve.
No.
This was left in my refrigerator over the weekend. Someone had left the Steel Reserve.
Whoever brought it should never be welcomed back into your home again.
Oh my goodness.
You know what? Even though it's a strawberry daiquiri, it still smells like malt liquor. Okay, can you imagine that?
Well, Steel Reserve tastes like somebody put it in a cup and then put it back in the can and then put it in the refrigerator. Steel Reserve.
So they kept their brand intact, huh?
Yeah, they kept the brand intact. And like what's funny is they try to make it seem like it's super nice because it's the alloy series. You know, it's not regular Steel Reserve, it's the alloy series.
Oh, it's fancy.
Oh yeah.
But it's still malt liquor.
Yeah. Real cheap alcohol.
Yeah.
Think like Colt 45 in the
they make it for us,
eh? I don't know who the hell. I don't know, to be honest with you.
I don't know. Steel Reserve might be owned by. It's probably owned by one of the bigger companies.
Probably.
Yeah. It's made for real broke people, and the world don't like broke people. That's what's made for.
What you over there drinking?
You talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, the Hailstorm, the Silver Lining.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Okay. Well, now that we have done our intros and things, and I'm just gonna. That's why I poured a small glass because I don't know how this is gonna go. I'm gonna get back to the introduction. So Jasmine, what you want to talk about first? Your new position or the book?
It is whatever we can talk about either. I'm flexible.
All right, well, I'm gonna put the banner up there. You go to any place books are sold. Find my cousin's book. Purchase her wares. Hattie leads the way. Now, can you speak on it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Hattie Leads the Way is my first children's book. It was published in January of this year. As I said, I'm a 14-year educator. I've read thousands of books to my students, and I felt like I could definitely try my hand at writing my own story. I do teach in Washington, D.C. The population of my students is 98.7% African American. So I've been in urban education my entire career. And it was always super important for me. I wanted to make sure that the books that I was reading to my students, included them in the stories that, because representation really, really does matter. Media is how, people form their perceptions of, us as people. And I really wanted my students to be able to see themselves represented in stories. Most children's books that are produced, 2 out of 3 children's books that have been produced since like 1999, I believe, are more likely to feature an inanimate object or an animal as the main character before they feature a character of color. So it like just hearing that was just like astonishing. I mean, like when I was growing up, I was born in 87. And when I was in elementary and middle school, I can't remember any books that were read to us that featured, a Black character, or even in any Black characters in the stories at all. So I really wanted to make sure that my students could see someone who looked like them, who, you know, was not, you know, this media, you know, image of what a Black child is, someone who is always in trouble, or, you know, is being sneaky or having behavior problems or anything like that. I wanted them to see themselves in a positive light. And then I also wanted my students to learn Black history in a developmentally appropriate way, obviously, because most recently I was teaching kindergarten, and, you know, trying to teach, you know, a 5-year-old about slavery or, you know, racism is very, very abstract. So I wanted to take that same concept, but bring it down to their level, somewhere that they could understand it. So my story, Hattie Leads the Way, here it is. You guys can see it.
I love it.
There's my story, Hattie Leads the Way. So my story reimagines Harriet Tubman as a little girl on her school's playground. So there's a brand new jungle gym that her school has. There's a brand new jungle gym that her school has built, and she really wants to go and play on this jungle gym. But there are some mean big kids who are trying to stop her. So think about Harriet Tubman and, you know, the white slave owners and things that were trying to stop slaves from getting to freedom. So they're putting mud pies on the slides. They're knocking them off the swings. They're doing everything they can to turn recess upside down. So Hattie has to be brave and determined, and she has to come up with a plan to successfully lead her friends to the other side of the playground, what we're calling the playground promised land. So she comes up with a couple of different plans. She tries and she fails. She tries and she fails, but she finally succeeds by leading her friends through a set of tunnels that are on the playground, reminiscent of the Underground Railroad. So leading them through these tunnels successfully to the other side of the playground.
You're supposed to say, spoiler alert, she makes it.
Yes, real quick,
she makes it.
Can you, when you speak, can you slow down just a little bit so Pops can keep up with you?
Yeah, no problem
Thank you.
So spoiler alert, yes, she does successfully lead her friends to the other side of the playground. But the book I really wanted to obviously introduce children to a historical African American figure. I also wanted to teach them about, you know, this bravery and perseverance and never giving up in the face of obstacles. And even when a problem may seem bigger than you, there's nothing that you can't do to try your hardest to overcome it and to face that obstacle. So bringing that concept down to, you know, to a 5-year-old's level, so that even though now at this age, they may not be able to, you know, have the cognitive ability to be able to understand, you know, everything that goes into, you know, racism and slavery and abolition and Harriet Tubman and the fight for the freedom. But they can make a connection themselves. Okay, well, I remember a time when, you know, I wanted to do something and someone tried to stop me, or, you know, I really wanted to achieve this goal and there were obstacles standing in my way. So, you know, I had to try my best. I had to work really hard, and that's how I was able to overcome this challenge or this obstacle. So that's my story. Hattie Leads the Way.
I love it.
I love it. Okay.
Thank you.
I love it. All right, I got to ask you the hardball question.
Okay.
Did you write this, or did ChatGPT write this?
I wrote this story. I absolutely wrote this. And it was so funny. So, like I said, it wasn't published until January of this year, but I originally had the idea for the story back in 2017. Like, I write everything, you know, I have lots of notebooks and journals, and so I write everything down, and I put the date on everything just so I kind of can remember, like, my train of thought, you know, what I was thinking, where it was. So the idea originally came back in 2017, but, you know, just, you know, initially, you know, kind of like second guessing myself, like wondering, like, is this a good idea? Like, is it going to be well received? You know, are people gonna get it? Are they gonna kind of see that comparison to Harriet Tubman? Just kind of questioning myself. You know, I kind of just put it off to the side. Like, I had the first idea, I wrote things down in my journal, but I wasn't really, you know, actively pursuing, you know, making it a real thing. And I would, you know, constantly go back to my journals and just see, you know, things, see the title, because I knew the title right away. I had kind of like my concept. I even sketched out some of the characters, and it was just like, okay, I finally just need to go ahead and make this a reality. Like, even if it sells 10 million copies, if it sells 10 copies, like, I just want this to be like one of my contributions to the world. I want to put it out there, and however it's received, it will be received. Whoever it's for, you know, will receive it. You know, it'll reach whoever it's supposed to reach. So in summer, actually about January of 2022, I was like, okay, well, like, let me just put this book out there. I want to do it. I just need to do it. I kind of have everything. Like, let me just sit down and do it. So I worked with an editor. I hired an editor who has about 20 years of experience in the industry. Worked with him to kind of get just because obviously I've read lots of books, but had never written a book before. So I needed to work with an editor just to make sure that the story flowed, that it had a good arc, that the character was someone who, children could relate to, that it followed a simple pattern so that students could kind of easily anticipate like what was going to happen next in the story. I really wanted to include like rhyming language in the book. So I worked with an editor who was fantastic. And that whole entire process from start to finish in the editing process was about 4 months. We would, go through this different drafts and, take out this line, add this word, you don't need these words here, move this around. So we kind of went back and forth. So that was about 4 months. And so once I had my final manuscript, I was able to work with my illustrator. She is based in Richmond, Virginia. So we, connected with one another, and it was super cool because, I'm not an artist at all. Like I can do some basic things, but like to be able to illustrate this book, like I definitely could not do that alone. But I was able to come up with all of the concepts.
She's being humble, y'all. You don't see the painting she did in her room, but she's legit.
But so yeah, I mean that's a different kind of art though. Like, but just to be able to create these characters, my illustrator, her name is also Jasmine as well. So I worked with her, and I came up with all the concepts for the illustrations, and so we went back and forth. And this process was maybe about a month and a half working on the illustrations. I got some initial sketches, and like just from day one, once I got the initial sketches back, I was absolutely in love. But it was super important to me that I found one who was a Black person. Plus, it was a plus that she was a Black woman, because I felt like, this is very near and dear to my heart. And so I wanted to work with someone who kind of like understood where I was coming from in writing the story. And I celebrate Black children. I wanted someone who had, a love and a passion for Black children as well. So that was just a bonus, that it was a Black woman, and she was super, super talented. Worked with her, and it was about 6 weeks for the illustrations. And then kind of once we had all that together, we went ahead, did the format and all the outline and all that, and it was ready to go, ready to upload at the end of December 2022. And it was published on January 4th of 2023.
So is your illustrator using Midjourney? I'm on AI kick right now. I'm just playing.
Oh no.
I'm just playing. Are you use ChatGPT to write your next books?
I'm not, and I'm still trying to figure out, like, and kind of understand, like, all this ChatGPT and, like, what it all means and all that stuff.
Okay, you haven't going down that rabbit hole yet.
No, I'll be pen and paper works for me.
Okay. I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna use ChatGPT.
My cousin's talking about doing the good work for the world, and Uncle Pooh Bear's like, we can monetize this by doing it quicker with ChatGPT.
Well, quicker, man. We can have 20 in the series, by the weekend, and then use Midjourney. But I mean, people are doing it, but that's great. I love the story. I love the concept. I think it's super dope. Are you gonna make more for real? I was being facetious, but like.
Yeah, no, I absolutely am. Once the book was kind of put out, and I got some initial feedback. It was definitely received very, very well. Like I said, it was published January 4th, and before the end of January, so I self-published through Amazon, and sales and things went very well, and it actually got picked up by Barnes and Noble as well. So it's
wow, that's awesome.
Available on the Barnes and Noble website as well. I'll actually be doing a pop-up in a couple weeks at a Barnes and Noble location here in Maryland. So yeah, it went really well. I definitely have more ideas to continue kind of in this same vein in this series. So I was taking historical figures, kind of bringing them down to a child's level. So yeah, I'm working on the next one now. Hopefully, I would love for it to be ready to go kind of like around the time of the 1-year anniversary of this one. So hopefully by January, I'll be putting out another one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope.
Thank you.
That's cool. Yeah, I can see like Black could be pretty good for you, and particularly going back to school, right? Especially if you're getting into schools, to be some of those books that they're reading to the children. But little Hattie needs to be told during Black History Month. I think that'll be pretty cool.
Absolutely. I got you.
Was it particularly hard to get into the child's book space? Because it seems like I had an idea, boom, I did it. Now I'm in Barnes and Noble. That's a pretty quick turnaround.
You know what? I won't say that it was particularly hard. One, I definitely do feel like obviously, God's hand has been in all of this. So he's definitely opened lots of doors for me. I think, initially it was really just about doing the work, like creating the book, like getting it out there. And I think, like I said, it's been very, very well received. Obviously, I had to do a lot of, self-promotion and, with my website, with Instagram, Facebook and things like that. But it wasn't super difficult, especially because, I won't say it's like writing for Black children is a niche market, but like it kind of sort of is. Because most books are,
it's very niche and it's needed.
Yeah, it'll definitely feature, animals and, the wind or a cloud will be the main character before they have a black character. So it was definitely.
What is the Pixar joke? What if cats had feelings? What if toys had feelings? What if Black people had feelings? Like,
right.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. So we've seen, A Bug's Life, ants are the main character, the insects are the characters of the entire movie. So like, I just really wanted to see, Black children celebrated. And, all of the characters in the book, like they are Black kids, like they are definitely like little Black girls. Like she has her hoop earrings and she has her curls and her friend has braids and beads. And, I really, really wanted, because I was thinking about like my students, like when they open this book, like I want them to see someone who they feel like looks like them, someone who who they know, who they might play with. And I had a couple of opportunities. Actually, the first day of Black History Month this year, I was able to share the story with a school here in DC, and it was just super cool because two little girls came up and they said, that's me. She looks like me. And so two of them actually had they had purple glasses on, like the main character that like Hattie does in the story, and it was just super cool. Like that was my ultimate goal. Like I really, really wanted like my students and little Black girls and little Black boys, when they see this cover of this story, when they look at the pages, like they can connect and make a real life connection to seeing themselves positively represented.
So who's next in the series? Can you tell us, like, or who are some people that you're thinking about working with?
I'm thinking about Thurgood Marshall. Also thinking about obviously Martin Luther King. So I think I have a pretty good idea for Martin Luther King. So I'm working on that. So I think that will likely be the next character. And so what I want to do, I would love to continue the same characters that are in this story that we see. So this is Hattie or Harriet Tubman, and then this next figure that we see here, he could be the representation of Martin Luther King, with high top fade and things like that. So,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all heard it here first, man. Spoilers, expect good.
Absolutely.
Martin.
Grandpa, what do you think about all? Grandpa, what do you think about all this?
Well, I'm listening to some lettered people. I'm unlettered, so I think it's a good idea. Except I can't keep up with you. But I even forgot what I was going to say. Oh, about characters. And you were speaking of writing about Dr. Or did you say that?
Yeah.
And I thought about a forgotten hero is my man, Paul Robeson. I wish somebody would tackle that. He was a man of character. He'd done all the things, but I don't think he got the recognition that he did in the period of his lifetime, But he was out front all the way, and he suffered a great deal. And I'd like to see somebody take Paul Robeson. He's my hero.
And following up with what you were saying, I was going to ask that, are you going to use this as an opportunity to introduce stories about lesser known Black, people in history?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's so, Paul Robeson is not the only one. There's so many Black figures. Of course, we know Martin Luther King and Harriet Tubman, and we know Barack Obama. We know those huge names, but there are so many other people who are a large part of Black history, who just in everyday, who are part of our everyday life that we don't even realize, like their contributions. And I went to an HBC. I attended Howard. And I remember like being at Howard, and I took an intro to Black politics class and just learning about all, I feel like I knew a lot going to college, but like just, really having that HBCU experience, and then just learning so much more about all of kind of like, I don't want to say hidden figures, because they weren't hidden, but the ones who don't necessarily get that major spotlight, like a Martin Luther King or like Harriet Tubman and things like that. So it is an absolutely excellent opportunity to kind of shine the light on some lesser known figures.
Yeah, ones that don't necessarily fit the narrative of white society, right? Because they control our history and they control the narrative. So they only tell you about people that they're willing to celebrate because it helps to our story. So I like Lewis Latimer because he's actually the genius behind Thomas Edison. Edison stole the majority of his patents, his inventions, right, and took the credit, and then white folks, just write Edison's name down.
You were speaking of Lewis Latimer. I think about a lot of Black people who have been shoved into the background, such as the Lewis and Clark expedition. When you hear about opening of the West and Lewis and Clark opening up the West, but they very little about York, the man who was in the forefront of the discovery of the West. He went there. In other words, from my understanding, Lewis and Clark probably never would have made it through the West because he was able to communicate with the natives and everything. So we've got a lot of things where, and then you take on. There's so many Black people who have got lost. Was Admiral Perry, the man going to the North Pole, and he gets up. He's the one that he gets pushed in the background, and then they say Admiral Perry and discovered the North Pole. But who was the man that was the first man that got there? So we continuously see are not getting recognition for some of the stuff that we've done.
Yeah, and I think the problem is we're not telling our stories.
Right?
We're just allowing other cultures, other people to tell history, and then begging them to include us in, but they're not going to do that. So I just think it's stuff like projects like yours is important because we have to tell the story. We have to control it because everyone else has proven time and time again that that's all they're going to do is write us out of the picture and minimize our contributions to humanity, right? That's really what we're talking about. Who's contributed to humanity when we're speaking on history?
Hey, Pop, Matthew Hensley?
Yes. Oh, she's asking, are you talking about Matthew Henson?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was the whole, right?
Mm.
Yeah. I was talking about him. My understanding was he was one of the only ones that was healthy enough or at this particular period to go on to the North Pole.
Yeah, he's the only one that made it.
He made it up there, right.
The rest of them did make it, but they tell the story as if they made it. Yeah. That's why it's important work.
What you mentioned about kind of controlling the narrative, because like as you said, that's what happens is we get written out of history, our contributions get downplayed, the atrocities and the things that how they treat us and the things they did to us, they downplay that and make it seem like we just voluntarily we just signed up for slavery and it was just something we just agreed to. And like you're absolutely true about controlling the narrative, being us being able to tell our stories. You know, and it's not to say that, you know, every white person or every non-Black person, you know, is out to do wrong and is out to, you know, not tell the story the accurate way, but there's nothing like us being able to tell our story because we have the experience, we literally lived it. You know, our ancestors like have passed this information, these experiences down, you know, through generations. So it is about controlling our narrative and telling our story our way.
Yeah, it's critical. We have to, right? They're not going to act right. And, you know, I appreciate you. Not to say that all of them aren't like this, but, you know, I challenge you to leave that part out. Let them defend themselves. That's how they speak about us. They just speak about ill. They say whatever they want to say, and they don't be like, no, not all of them. You know, we just got to be more direct. And if we could the narrative, then it doesn't really matter. Because the truth is, history, Black folks and Africans have always written about history, right? But we're led analysis of history instead of reading Sheikh Anta Diop or reading Amos Wilson or reading any of our Black scholars. We're led to the white that is legitimized when it's Europeanized. And, you know, I just think we got to start staying off of our heels and just leaning into these conversations and just saying it. And if good white folks are good white folks, then you show it by denouncing
right, you
them.
show it. No one has to defend you. Right. No one has to defend you. That's true.
Yeah, I'm a revolutionary, so you gotta watch yourself.
I want to ask you, Jasmine. I want to ask you. So now that you know it's growing, the book is gaining momentum. Like, have any schools, like, have you inquired any schools maybe put in the libraries, or have they reached out to you, or districts?
So not it's not in any school libraries yet, but it actually has been accepted into the Prince George's County Memorial Library System. So PG County, the wealthiest Black county in America, it is in their library system. So that's super exciting. I did a local author exhibit with them in April, and I'll be doing another one in September. So it is in that library system, which is very, very cool. It's a huge honor. Again, I think about this was just an idea in my head, and now like it's a real actual thing here in the world. Like you can go to a library like and find a book that I wrote. So it is in the library system. Like I said, it's available in Barnes and Nobles. Like I actually just won an award for the book as well through go ahead.
No, I'm saying awesome.
Oh, thank you. So I won a what's called a Self-Inked Award. So it's an award for self-published authors by Little Aiden Press. And it just, celebrates the work of Black, Indigenous, and people of color authors. And so I actually just won the Best Picture Book Award for 2023. So.
You're in the DC area?
I am, yep.
Go to that museum. What's the big one?
The National Museum of African American.
Yeah, you should go into that gift shop and see if you can put it. Like, how cool would that be, right? I mean, if you're getting traction in the area, if it's in the library there, it's like, hey, they always need stuff to sell, right? All they can say is no, right? Like,
good idea.
Yeah, that would be awesome though. Just to put that feather in your cap, right? Like it's in the largest museum, African American museum in the world, I believe, right?
Yeah.
That would be pretty
cool. I can see it now. Local author puts book inside of museum.
Yeah. I mean,
from your lips to God's ears. Like I'm definitely I'm a hustler, I'm a worker. So you put it out there in the universe. So I believe that God has to respond to it. So I'm definitely gonna put in the work, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, they need stuff for that smaller demographic in there, right? Like, I mean, they probably got a lot of deep historical books that's building on the conversations that's being held. Here's a fictional book that the children can relate to, and that's got a good message of empowerment. So I like it. I think they will pick it up. I don't got no say in it, but
Right, I appreciate the thought. See, that's just planted the seed. Now I got to water it, and God can let it grow. So.
Yeah, there you go.
What part of your experience as an educator has, I shouldn't say allowed, but have you used to write this book? Because like you said, you wrote it for children, so because you know how what would reach out to them the best. Like what methods that you used throughout your experience to guide you to the route you took to write the book?
So again, I always thought about like my students in mind, writing with them in mind. My kids were in kindergarten, and I thought about the kinds of stories that that I had read to them as a part of our curriculum. And I thought about, okay, well, what kind of stories are they most interested in? What stories do can they repeat all the words back to me? What stories do they really go back to and really take a look at the pictures and spend a lot of time looking at those pictures and kind of memorizing those words? What stories do they get most excited about? What stories do they want me to read again and again and again? And it was always, books that had a lot of rhyming language in them. Again, to be, it's just easier for kids to kind of like to remember that. It's an auditory thing, so it's easy for them to remember the language and for them to be able to fill in the words in the story and to anticipate what comes next. So I thought about, making sure that the story had, a simple storyline that they could follow along. Something that was, obviously kid friendly, that, was made sense to them. They go out to recess, they go to the playground, every day. And, they've had experiences where, someone wasn't sharing with them, or someone was, standing in their way. Someone was trying to stop them from doing something that they wanted to do. So I wanted to really think about what's an everyday experience, what is something that any kid, could really connect to. So a simple storyline, simple sentences using a lot of rhyming language so that they can anticipate what was coming next. They could fill in those missing words in the story. And then I also wanted to include some rich vocabulary in the story because our students, I wanted to expose them to that vocabulary because they don't always get to hear, that super rich language. So I want them to hear, words like confident and jubilee and brave and overcoming. I wanted them to hear those words to get familiar and get used to hearing things like that. So that's why I included some of that in the text as well.
You have anything? You
No, I just love the entire concept. It's sort of reminded me of the little Nene coloring book, well, Nene series that your uncle started with your grandmother and your granddad, going back and meeting these historical figures as children, and them getting to tell their story. So I just think it's so necessary, just because our as everybody knows on here, our little black babies aren't being taught that early on. Like the confidence that the majority of us have now, it was instilled in us much later than it should have been, outside of the home, right? In the schools, it's just, we're so beat down. So it's good to see, for these babies, to see people that look like them doing great things. Like I love when you held up the book. Can you hold up the book again? I just want to see it.
Uh-huh.
So when you held up, the first thing I saw were the hairstyles, because it's like, and honestly, oh, if I could throw this out there, and I know it's a little different once you get older and stuff like that, but it's like little girls nowadays, it's hard to see any of these little black babies with their natural hair now. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all straight and snatched. So to see little young girls who are embracing their natural hair, their natural looks and all that stuff, it's exciting. So whenever I see young girls like that, I always make sure to compliment them, to make sure that they feel confident, and to see the book with the babies with the afro puffs and the braids and all that stuff that they should have at that age. You know what I'm saying?
Kids.
Like, yeah, like kids. Like it's just really good to see.
What you mean at the age they shouldn't have a lace front on? No weave?
Hopefully not at 5.
Crystal couldn't even take it. It's like, I'm not leaning into that mess.
No, so yeah, it's dope. I love what you're doing. Like anything that's gonna encourage these babies and pull them up, I absolutely love it, because representation matters. It really, really does. It really does, to learn all of these things at an early age. And it is not just the same 8 black people who did good stuff for us.
Right.
Like I couldn't imagine how it would feel growing up and being able to run down a long laundry list of black folks who did so many different things in so many different industries, and not just singers and dancers. And singing and dancing is needed. You know what I'm saying? That's a gift. That's a blessing. So not shading that, but just how they walk around, our baby should be able to walk around. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? So,
Well, you know, you got to be able to have. We got to have our own propaganda machine. Like everything doesn't have to be obvious in your face. Like little books where, like you said, it's not directly saying Harriet Tubman, but the story is the same. Something that people anybody can pick up and like not, pick out their fork and pitchforks for. You got to have stuff that's hit you in the face, of course. But that's just how the game works. You got to hit everybody at all different angles to give them the information.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. Building on that, since you've been in the schools the last 14 years,
Your service is bad. You breaking up. Repeat that.
oh, yeah, so you've been in the schools the last 14 years,
Uh-huh.
in the black community, right? So what the hell is missing? What's missing? Where
So that is a very heavy question.
I know it.
And I will say that it's not just one thing that's missing. I can't, just point the fingers and say, oh, well, it's the students not doing the work, or it's the teachers not doing this, or it's the curriculum, or it's the district, or it's the parents, like it's all of that. What's missing, I'm not very old. I'm 35. But I'm not super young. But a lot of our parents, that we see in schools. I worked in an elementary school. So the oldest student at my school was, 10, 11 years old. And, their parents are, 23 and 24 and 25. Like the parents are very, very young with 10 and 11-year olds. And I think initially, like a lot of it, the parents are still trying to grow up themselves. They're still trying to figure out life for themselves, while they are responsible for raising another human being, trying to teach them how to be responsible and a good citizen, and someone who is contributing positively to the world. And I think that gets to be difficult when you just trying to figure out life for yourself. Now you're responsible for someone else who is also who has to figure out, like, who you are responsible for figuring out life for, on top of all of the demands of society, and the pressures that we're under, and the lack of resources that we oftentimes have in our communities. And we'll think about fair access to to higher education and to good jobs, and all those things like that. All of those things play a part. So I think the parents are still kind of trying to figure out life for themselves. And a lot of times, like, we don't get a lot of family. We don't get enough family engagement, in terms of families who are really involved in what's happening in the everyday life of their students. We definitely we have parents who come up when they come to the school when there's an issue about a missing jacket or a missing lunchbox, or somebody says something to my child that I don't like. But when we have family literacy nights, and when we're teaching you the curriculum, and we're trying to show you and model best practices for you, and inviting you to read with your students, and parent teacher conferences and things like that, we don't get the same response and the same feedback. And it gets to be very, very difficult when you're an educator who is committed, when you're trying to to give your best and to serve your students as best as you can. It's like, okay, we're in a classroom, we have 25 30 kids in some classes, and you're trying to differentiate because whether a child has an identification or not, every child needs to receive special education, because every child learns differently. Every child needs a certain set of tools and strategies to make sure that they are accessing the curriculum, to make sure they are understanding that they are learning and that they are growing. So as a teacher, like, it's our responsibility. I have to be sometimes I got to be a counselor, I have to be a teacher, I have to be a social worker, I got to be your mama, I got to be your daddy, I got to be your babysitter, I got to feed you, I got to wash your clothes. I have to do all of these things for you as a teacher, because it really, really does take a village. And we take on those roles. We play, so many different roles, because, like I said, as an educator, as someone who I'm not in it for a paycheck. I genuinely, like, I love these kids, and when they are with me at school, like, I think about them like these are my babies. From 8 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, these are my kids. So I have to pour into them. I have to fill in those missing gaps where things they may not be getting at home. I have to make sure that I'm doing that here in the classroom, because I can't control what happens once they leave the classroom once they're home, in the evening time. So I don't know if you're going to have a chance for someone who's going to read to you, or someone who's going to ask you, questions about your day. Someone who is going to find out, okay, well, what projects and things are you working on? It's like, we really, that family engagement is a piece that, I mean, I wish it was something that, we could force, and, that was mandatory, because I think, like, kids need to see their caretakers, their families, their guardians. They need to see that they are just as invested as their teachers are. And I think that to really get kids to buy in to academics, to school, to learning, like, it has to be a partnership. It can't just be, me as a teacher, or, as a school representative, telling you, what you should do. Like, I am your partner in education. Like, I want you to feel like this is a team, so that, my high expectations of you are the same as Auntie's high expectations of you. So neither one of us are going to let you slide, because we're working together. We know, what's expected of you. We know how to reinforce the academic skills that you're learning in class, because we both care about you, and we all want to see, you succeed and you grow. So I feel like that's like the starting point. Like, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Like, it's much easier for me to build a relationship with a student, and for a student, for me to be able to tap into their diverse learning needs and styles. Once I've spent some time with them, okay, now I know you as a person. You see that I'm invested in you, so you're more receptive to listen and to learn from me, because now Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like, you want to feel wanted, you want to feel accepted, you want to feel like you're a part of something. So really incorporating families into that family engagement piece, and empowering families to see themselves that although you may not be a teacher by profession or by trade, you are your child's first teacher, because they do, a lot of their habits and skills, they do learn at home from you, their approaches to learning, when they see, if you're reading, are you reading a book? Are you, sitting down watching 8 hours, of TV? Are you having conversations? Are you asking questions? Are you writing? So a lot of their habits and things like that, they learn from home before they even get to school. So they're coming in with these sort of attitudes, towards learning and about learning. And so I would love to just see more family engagement, and more families feeling empowered to say, like, okay, well, I can help my students. Because I've heard so many times, well, I don't know that new math, or, I don't know how to do it this way, or, that's not how we did it when I was growing. And again, the strategies, have changed, but it's still the same thing. We're all still learning the same thing. And I want families to feel like they are empowered, that they can impact their students' learning, working together with us as teachers, with with the school administration, like, they can be a positive part of their child's learning experience.
So
Sorry, that was
it's like, no, I'm with it. Somebody else wanted to jump in, but I always got questions around all of this. But I'm like, that's, you're seeing it, because you're like waste the road, right? Like, you're seeing the product of what our society and our community is producing. So I'm wondering, like, where's the breakdown happening? Is it like a poverty thing? Is it a cultural thing? Is it a lack of resources? That's not. Is it the fact that the community, those in the community that have made it, are not going back to the community to mentor these, teaching them models, investing in their future? Like, I don't know. I know it's impossible. It's really an impossible question, right? I
think it's a little bit of all of that. I am definitely proud to say, like, I think I have some great examples just in my own personal network of people, who are products of, I teach for DC public schools, of people who are, products of DC public schools, who have gone on to serve in teacher capacities and leadership capacities, and now, who are administrators of schools and things like that. So I know that there are people who are giving back, who are pouring back into, the communities that they came from, who, essentially, they've made it out, and now, they're reaching back, to help others. But even in all that, we can't ignore, the fact that poverty does exist. We can't ignore the fact that, there is a lack of resources in our community. We can't ignore the fact, the cultural, influence, that goes on, when kids, as young, I mean, like I said, my students were in kindergarten, but, they're looking at, these rappers and these music videos and things like that. And like, they're more apt to sing in these rap rap songs and learning all the words to those rap songs and things like that, but like can't produce certain letter sounds. And I'm just like, where's the disconnect? They're like, how does that like make sense?
Right.
That doesn't, it just doesn't add up for me. The cultural influences where we see, you know, the mothers, like I said, they're growing up at the same time as these kids are. So, you know, we got 10-year-old girls who are, you know, dressing, you know, wild, and they're celebrating, you know, twerking and being on TikTok and Instagram and just doing like, you know, things that like I couldn't imagine like even being exposed to. You know, like I said, I'm not that old, but I'm also not super young. But just when I was 10 years old, I'm like, I wasn't thinking anything about that. Just like, you know, as Auntie mentioned, like, you know, little girls with, you know, weave in their hair. Like, what in the world? Like that, you know, that's an adult decision. That's something that should not be happening until, you know, much later on in life. I think kids are being exposed to so much, you know, so early on.
Yeah.
And it does play, you know, they're partially, some kids are forced to grow up really quickly, and then some kids are, you know, the culture just influences them, you know, to grow up and to be more curious about certain things very, very early on. And it's like, you know, their innocence is being taken away, their childhood is being taken away. So it's a little bit of all of that.
I got a perfect example with me and my wife's is, well, my wife and I's children, not the youngest boy, but you know, I be having to tell Sebastian, man, you know, you being too fast, dude. And like, I don't think people are telling their kids that. No, I'm serious. Like, he would be playing with other little kids, and you know, he might see another little girl, something, try to get real close to her. I'm like, dude, you gotta give people personal space. You don't be doing that. You don't know how she may feel about you getting so close to her, and like, and him, he's always so close to me and everyone else in the house that he think that's cool. And I'm like, dude, there's certain social like bubbles or boundaries that you can't run up to everybody and hug them. You know what I mean? Like you can't just do that. And I think that's just, I guess I don't want to sound like old man yelling at cloud, but I think that people gotta
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, it's gotta be a way where you can tell kids certain things where it's just like, hey, this isn't for you. You are a child. This isn't the space that you need to be in right now. And I feel like we've gotten away from that to a certain extent.
We absolutely have. I think people are more concerned about like being their kids' friends than being their parent. You know, I don't have any children of my own, but you know, I do have two goddaughters. And I've been around kids, you know, for the last, you know, every day for the last 14 years. And I think that a lot of times people want to be liked by their kids. And again, there's nothing wrong with, you know, wanting your kid to love you and, you know, having a great relationship with them. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But there still has to be that boundary where kids know, like, I'm the parent, I'm the adult, and what I say goes, and this is how it's going to go. I feel like people compromise so much. Like, they play with their kids. Just some of the conversations that I've heard, you know, kids have with their parents. I'm like, you said what to your mother? Like, and like, I would have never, because all of my teeth would have been in the back of my throat. Like I said, I'm 35 now, like, and I still, you know, don't talk to my mother any kind of way, although, you know, we're both adults. I'm like, I still have reverence and respect for her, and I feel like a lot of that has gone out the window. And even like, you know, even as a teacher, like, parents get super sensitive. Like, you can't talk to my baby any kind of way. Now, I'm not saying that you should be, you know, cursing at,
screaming at the baby,
yeah, crazy or anything like. But anytime you correct a student, and you know, parents get so offended. Don't you say that to my baby? I'm like, well, ma'am, your baby was doing something wrong. Like, I get it, but I'm trying to look out, you know, for like the future, like society. Like, these are the people who are going to be the grown-ups, and you know, in 10 years from now, who are going to be the ones making decisions about the future and, you know, the world that we're living in. And you know, it's kind of looking kind of weary.
Yeah, I feel it.
I'm with you on that. Like, I love that my kids like me, but it's way more important that it's the respect. Where our children are older, you know, they're 20 and almost 24, but it's just that whole desire to do any and everything to make your kids like, especially, it seems to be more prevalent, and I could be wrong. It seems to be more prevalent with mothers of daughters, like they're trying to like have their little bestie. And I know you know, there were jokes that came about, you know, my broke best friend.
Broke bestie,
Like, I don't want to be in the room, especially now. If I'm hanging out and having girl time, I don't need no kids in the room with me. I don't want to hear, oh, girl, she done heard that before. She done heard, no, she ain't finna hear nothing coming out my mouth. Like that's what's not gonna happen. And unfortunately, that happens so much in these matching outfits and all the little mini me's. Like, come on now, like they still need to be kids. They still need to be kids. And life is gonna grow you up any doggone way. Why would we push them out the door even faster?
And even faster, yeah, absolutely.
So now my little CC trying to kiss on the girls, that ain't nothing new. That's from the dawn of time. That just is what it is. Now what's different?
Hold on. Let me interject here, Auntie. Let me interject on that because I try to be fair. Because just like how people tell girls not to be fast, you gotta tell boys you can't just do whatever you want to either.
Now,
And I don't want my son to think that he can roll up on somebody and take over agency of them without any type of consent. Like I nip that in the bud quick. I'm like, hey man, we don't do that. You gotta talk to people first. You gotta let them know how you feel. Like see what's cool. And I don't think I think that starts early. I think I think that was a problem that's been not just the Black community, but everybody community that they just let
it absolutely is. Like,
they let little kids just kind of do whatever because in the guise of their children, they're innocent. But I'm like, you're innocent until you do the act, and then you need to be told why you shouldn't do it or why you should do something.
Yeah, you have to explicitly teach that. That's not something that, I mean, any kid is just going to know and going to because, for the most part, kids are innocent. I don't think that they're, they're all malicious and they're going out, just trying to be devious and do things that are wrong. However, like you still have teaching consent is important. Like, no, you can't just come touch me because you feel like it or because you're curious or because, well, although you may mean well, you're trying to be friends or you're trying to make friends, whatever it is. Like, again, this is still something that has to explicitly be taught because when it's not taught, you do have 10-year-old boys who are asking other 10-year-old girls, well, let me see what's under your skirt. Let's go out. We out here on the playground. Let's go around the corner on the playground and let me see what you got, and I'm gonna show you what I got. And people may be taken aback by that. Those are very real things that happen in elementary schools, in middle schools, every single day.
When they're recording it and it's being published online. I can't remember. I was just talking to a teacher and they told me about a tape they found that was made on their campus in the teacher's lounge by like 9-year-olds or something like that. And I'm like, what? So that's what I was about to say. Like little kids are naturally affectionate, right? They just are, and that's honestly a good thing. But like I said, it's interesting that the conversation has to be had now. And it honestly should have been had a long time ago. Like it should have started a long time ago. But it's interesting that we're way more aware of it now, of how things could be in the future. And I could be wrong. Because I think now also people, because so much has happened, that I think that a lot of adults are even way more jumpy. And it wouldn't even take much for one parent to accuse a child of doing something malicious when they're just being a child. You know what I'm saying? So it's good that you all are having that conversation with him early. Like, because we used to always tell our sons, like, look, kissing is only for home. Like, we don't, these little girls try to run up on you, hug and kiss on you. No, we don't do that. You're not going to do that to them. But it's just interesting that the conversation has to be way deeper now, just because things like the world's crazy and these kids are recording everything.
Man, they will sue you and send your baby to jail on some call the police. And he just being a 5-year-old.
6 years old. Like I couldn't imagine. Like I wish I knew what school that was that this just happened to, but I couldn't imagine finding out. And the administration found out about the tape that was made from a parent because it was posted on social media. You know what I'm saying? Like these are babies. These are babies, and they're way too curious. But part of it, they have way too much access. Now, did we have access to our parents' VHS tapes? If they left, you know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't the same thing as now. Like if your kid got anything electronic, they basically have access to all the things, and you can sit there and try to put all the little blocks on there,
controls and blocks and all that.
There's a certain thing called reasonable amounts of shame. Like you shouldn't just be popping open the VHS in front of your mama and daddy. Kids these days be showing like grown folks videos and stuff. I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's very different. So their access to stuff is just way worse. At that age, we were if somebody asked, we were just curious. We trying to figure it out. Like I heard my brother say, that my
Yeah, got you.
but nowadays these children,
I guess so.
they are just way too exposed. And then when they're dressing like they're adults, they're acting like they're adults, they're having adult conversations. It's too much. And on top of it, they have social media where it feels like they're being pressured to do even more.
Exactly.
It's a sad time. I'm so glad I didn't grow up with social media. I'm so glad I didn't grow up with it.
Oh, well, I know it's this is a great conversation, but we gotta do our final thoughts because I see what time it is. So let's go with Auntie first. What are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts is awesome to see a young Black lady writing books for these young Black babies to encourage them and mold them and keep doing what you're doing for these last 14 years plus, because it's so, just listening to you talking your passion for it. I'm gonna tell you, it was hilarious. I was like, slow down, so Pops keep up. And you was like, okay, but it's the passion though, right? Like when you're passionate about it, it's hard to pull back. But so it feels good to listen to you and hear the love and the passion you have for these babies, because our older son runs my husband's math program, and he just heard one of the parents talk about how the teacher told their baby, he always gonna be special ed, so y'all may as well just give it up. He ain't never gonna do well. And he's like, how does a teacher say that? But there are unfortunately teachers who act like that. So to have the conversation with a teacher who's the absolute opposite, who loving on these babies, it just is refreshing. So thank you for what you do.
Oh, thank you.
Uncle Pooh and Grandpa, what's your final thoughts?
My final thoughts is we have to learn, as you've spoken, is to control the narrative. Because you can present something to somebody, but they don't know what happened before that, it means nothing. You got to let them what led up to a person doing what he did, or people doing what they're doing, because I'm going to see if I can express what I'm trying to say. Ever since going back to Cuba, ever since Fidel Castro became dictator, Castro was being a dictator. They never said a doggone thing about Batista, who took over the government, the coup. It was strict leadership. He killed so many Black people. I mean, it's uncountable, But nobody ever talks about it. They start off with Castro. Let's go back to why Castro became a dictator, And this is what it seems to be, that we let them control the narrative when we should be and say, well, what led up to this? Why are we doing what we're doing? That's my final thought.
Came back to Cuba.
I live on Cuba because I just can't stand the idea that the Cuban people have taken so much punishment, but they did nothing. They did nothing to us. And they have been for 60 years, they've been on them. And I remember when they went out of favor to the United States, for 60 years, they've been on nothing to us. So let people know as to why, Cuba like this, and let them decide on who's who and what's what,
There you go.
But let's tell, all I want to say is let's tell the whole, not piece it out and give the people a taste of what you want them to have. Tell the whole story, even as far as education is concerned with Black children. Let's get the whole story out, because we go back before slavery, somebody steal everything from, we got a whole list of things, hold the narrative, not let them accept it that we're not capable of handling this or capable of doing this, So all I'd like to say is, let's get the whole story out.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring this together and say you should do Little Castro. Do a Little Castro story.
I know that.
Little Castro story and tie in his involvement in the freedom of African the African continent and its contributions to literally freeing all of those countries and causing that succession of the separation from the colonizers, right? A lot of that was due to Fidel Castro, which is why we always talk about Nelson Mandela. When he was freed, the first place he went was to Cuba to thank Castro for his role in his freedom. But again, which is covered up because. Oh, go for it.
I'm just going to say, they fought 8 years over that for us, And somebody may have mentioned, says, sending those people over there to die because they were basically enlisted a lot of black Africans. I mean, Cuban. He said, "I'm not sending over. I'm sending them."
Yeah.
And it's all part of that struggle. I'm sending them home. They're fighting for their land.
Okay.
It's fired up. But to bring it back around, I think what you're doing is important work, especially in your 9-to-5 career. Number one is important work, which is something that's underappreciated in our community for whatever reasons. We act like the children are so very, but we disregard the teachers and the educators that are literally spending their money in order to make sure that the kids are adequately educated and fed and bathed and taken care of. Somehow the children are as important, but the people that are spending their most time with them, educating them, aren't. I don't really understand this society, but we society full of lip service anyway. Don't pay attention to what I'm doing, pay attention to what I'm saying. Seems to be more important. So kudos to you on that end for being on line of the underappreciated, but still fighting the important fight. And then, evolving into the entrepreneurial space to take it a step further and creating stories and narratives that children can better understand their history and who they are to empower them, right? And seeing images that look like them. Because I think the greatest thing that a parent or educator can instill in children is confidence, because it's confident people that overcome obstacles that forms the belief in themselves and all of that. And maybe we don't understand the new math right away, but it takes confidence to be diligent enough to keep fighting through and learning those things doing now, both in 9-to-5 and in this authorship world will pour into that. So I think that's dope. And I'm going to say what I thought Daddy was going to say. Clearly, Black women is always leading the way anyway.
Leading the way in the forefront. This is why things are moving. It's the reason
That's
moving.
true.
Black women, they out there front, And I give them kudos for that,
Yeah, I thought he was going to say it in his thing.
I really got it out.
All right, that's my final thought.
I love what Black women are doing in this day and age.
Well, Jasmine, what is your final thoughts? And thank you for being our guest on this episode.
Yeah, thank you. This was super fun. Well, again, just thank you all for having me. My final thought, I would say I'm definitely excited, to continue doing the work of, pouring into children, whether it's through my 9-to-5 job, whether it's through, my authoring. I'm excited to, see whatever impacts can be made. Like I said, if it sells 10 million copies, if it sells 10 copies, I'm just excited that whoever it is for, it will reach them, and that someone's life will be enlightened and inspired, that a child will see themselves, as confident, as brave, as an overcomer. So that's my thought.
That's dope. That's dope, Hattie.
Well, my final thought would be simple. Run out, buy Hattie Leads the Way. You got to support good authorship and just good. You got kids. If you don't got kids, support. Thank you.
It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and my website, HattieLeadsTheWay.com.
Nice.
So you can find it anywhere, y'all. It's literally everywhere books are sold, essentially.
I love it.
Well, cool. And thank you guys again. This is another episode of the Entitled Beer Rankings Show. I don't know how she ended, but all right. Oh, there we go. Wait. I normally see Grandpa